I won't assume any prior knowledge. If you have questions about anything that I'm saying that is not clear to you, just raise your hand and stop me. I'm going to talk about freedom and happiness from a different perspective. I'm going to start with politics, though. And I think we're going to talk about very interesting concepts here. Listen, what is the most important thing in the world?
For whom?
That's well, first great question. For whom? That's part of the answer. What is the most important thing in the world, the universe, that ever existed? Candidates, maybe?
Life? Whose life? For me, mine?
Yes. Your life.
Yeah.
Okay. What about your life is the most important thing?
I get to live,
You are.
enjoy life, be happy.
Okay. So your happiness.
Things.
Your happiness is the culmination of everything you're trying to do. I mean, the fact that you came here today is important, but why did you do it?
Learn things.
Towards what?
I could be better at understanding life.
Right. Words.
Successful, I guess.
Words.
This is going to towards feeling. If I'm successful, I would feel better. Is that
And which we can define it better, right? It's basically your happiness.
happiness?
So my thesis, okay, my hypothesis, that your life, most sacred thing that ever existed and will ever exist. I mean, as Ayn Rand said once, I will never die. The world's going to end. And I think that's very telling about how she sees the sacredness of human life, your life. So we're going to talk about that. And when I say the word happiness, people have different concepts, like, oh, I'm free, I'm walking on the beach with someone I love. Is this person happy? Maybe. Okay. Is he happier or less happier than this one? They could tell, right? So it's very hard. It's not an easy concept to define. You can't see it from the outside. So I'll need your help in defining it. So and really raise your hand, like I said. So I want to start from politics and then work my way back ethics. So if you know how philosophy is built, again, there's two main fundamental fields of knowledge, which is metaphysics, the understanding of reality as reality, and there is epistemology, which is our understanding of reality. So if you put man inside of reality, now there's a field of study of how do we, as humans, get to understand that thing called reality. So if you can think about maybe metaphysics and epistemology here, but it's really two fundamental fields. And then because of that, we get ethics, which is, okay, if we know reality and man's understanding of it, now we can ask the question, what is good for man? And then we can ask how we live together. That's politics. So you got metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and politics. And then aesthetics is a different field that asks why we need art. So the real question is, we all are hearing most of the day not philosophical talks about happiness, but we hear a lot about the fight for freedom or liberty. And when we're thinking about liberty or this idea of freedom, we never hear the fight for happiness. And honestly, we are losing, assuming everybody in the room, are you for freedom? For human freedom? Are you for it or against it?
I'm against it.
Exactly. Everybody votes for freedom. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions.
Even the first tyrant in the world, I don't think they think, okay, I'm against freedom.
Exactly. So it doesn't matter what your conception of freedom is, we are losing because people are becoming less and less free in our societies. And we're honestly, with our strategies, we're falling on our face. As, this is how bad it is. So why are we losing the battle for freedom? That's the question. So I'm going to tell you a story. I have audio. So imagine you live in an island. It's a really nice island, Edinburgh Island, call it. And you love the island. It's great. It's awesome. And but suddenly things are happening. I had a sound effect. Now I'm going to give visual effect. So really, what's going on is something's happening. Winds are coming in. They're lashing from the right and the left, and it's changing. I know that in where I live, when I moved to America in 2006, it was completely different. Now people talk differently. Nobody used to honk. Now everybody honks on the street. They used to be very polite. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. I don't do that much anymore. So my village is changing, and you start hearing all kinds of new words, and critical race theory and equity and things like that. It's like, where did that come from? It feels like it came out of nowhere. Suddenly everybody's talking about it, call themselves they, and so on and so forth. And it's like, why is that happening and where did that come from? And you hear new movements calling themselves woke, waking, and some of it sounds good. I mean, people should express themselves, and some of it is like, yeah, but they're going against things I believe in, like freedom and freedom of speech. And people being canceled suddenly. Really, it's this cancel culture, and in academia, people are getting fired for saying things, and people take it to the streets suddenly. So it's not just ideas, but people are acting on those ideas, and they're really harming. I don't know if you visited New York or San Francisco, you can see those streets changing and property being, and it's not just people on the call themselves woke or Black Lives Matter. It's on the right. People are becoming more extreme. We see racism, and it's like, what is going on? So it's getting closer to you. Like I remember seeing that picture, and I'm like, wow, something's really changing. This is my hero, Jefferson, who I think wrote the most important political document ever, and this is what they say about him. So you're sitting in your room and you're pondering what's going on, and you're concerned, and you feel the urge to fight or do something about it, right? And you see so many movements on the right and on the left, fighting and getting ready to fight each other. Polarization happening. And you think, what can I do about this? I mean, what is really going on? So the truth is that if you're going to continue to ponder what's going on without having the tools to understand what's really going on, your way of life is going to disappear. We've seen it many, many times in history. We don't know how to sustain quality of deteriorate dramatically. I mean, I don't know if you know, but they had running water in Rome. Then they forgot about it for centuries. Quality of life can go up, but it can go down. You can fall to tyranny. We can lose our freedoms. Nothing's guaranteed. So what do? Okay, we have to truly do a deep dive, like true scientists. They're seeing a phenomenon and saying, I need to learn what's going on. This apple is falling down to the floor. I want to understand how it does it, right? And so this lady, Ayn Rand, I think is one of the 4 mega philosophers that ever existed that gave us the ability to understand things in a whole new level. So really, she made some breakthroughs in her ability to penetrate into what's going on in the relationship between man and reality in the most fundamental level, but also she gave us foundations for ethics and foundations for politics and aesthetics, by the way. that are completely new. So what's really going on is that your island is actually a very deep island. And the people who control what's going on are holding it here and are shifting it to different places. You feel the weather here, right, the storms and everything, but what's really going on is a fight here. And this fight is not a political fight. That's what we see when we're asking ourselves every day, what's happening? Let's open the news, see what's going on, right? What's going on? Oh, Trump just won the election. Oh, Biden just, they stormed the White House. And so what's going on? That's the level that 98% of the people around you, being, optimistic here, this is that's the level they're thinking. And then if you see political argument, it's all about what's happening and the analysis of what's happening on that surface. What's really going on is people are trying to do good. And I think people that are fighting politically don't give the other side credit because everybody wants to do good. The question is, where is their compass pointing? Their ethical compass is like, socialism is great because it's more equity and equal opportunity, equal outcome. We're all going to be living like I lived in a kibbutz in Israel, where everything is equal. I don't know if you know, I grew up in a communist settlement where I didn't have any personal profit, zero. When somebody bought me a tape recorder, I had to give it away because it was not equal with the other kids. That's where I decided to leave, right? But everybody's trying to be good. The question is, what is their ethical premises? What are they? But I would say that's not even deep enough. Because how did they figure out what's good? Where is it coming from? This is epistemology. Because they figured out that something is true about us as humans. So then that defines what's the good. And then we should define policies on how to live. So epistemology is really at the core of how people think. Talk to someone, I'm sure here at the campus, and you say, what's true? How do you define what's true? And a lot of them will say, there's no objective truth. It's whatever I feel about it. Creates truthfulness. And metaphysics is even below that. If you think about the Kantian world that we're living in right now, which is Immanuel Kant defining it, he obliterates, in order to obliterate the age of reason, which was the Enlightenment, he obliterated reality as an arbitrary arbiter of truth. Okay, is there a chair here? Is there a chair here? How do you know?
Pretty fine. For us, it is a chair.
Yeah, but maybe you're dreaming right now. Maybe. So, Kant would tell you it's not maybe, you're dreaming right now. Or it's what's around you is a mesh of atoms, and it only hits your senses, and you construct reality in your head. So why even ask the question? Because maybe it's a chair for you and it's something else for me. So if in that case, there's no science. Because whatever I say to you, you say, no, it's not for me. I feel that's a bed. Okay, so we don't have objectivity. There's no truth because it's all subjective, whatever you feel. And that is how you obliterate reason. Because reason is just trying to see the world objectively. So we all say, is 2 and 2 4? Said who?
Depends on the mathematics you choose.
No, I don't know mathematics says it's different. But even that, I don't know if you see there's a movement that says that 2 and 2 is not. Like it's white privilege or supremacy to say that who decided, right? So they're trying to obliterate reality, obliterate our ability to know what's true. So that defines a specific ethics, which explains why we're going to collectivism. Because if there's no individual way to know reality objectively, we'll know reality. So we replace God with a community, and whoever has more power will define what it is that we need to do, because who knows? So this is the real map of what's going on. Now, if you think that we're going to win here, think again, because this defines history. Here is the world history in a minute. It was the ancient times, right, with primitive philosophies, right? Then created philosophy in ancient Greece, and quality of life of people rose dramatically because we started to ask the right question, and it was a mini age of reason. And then the Roman Empire took over, right? And because it took it's really a fight between Plato, who says the way to know reality is from revelations. The truth is in reality, it needs to be revealed to us. And Aristotle, with his hand down, his famous School of Athens by Raphael, that says, no, we have the ability, the capacity to know reality as it is, with the power of reason, and he actually created logic. He says this cannot be a chair and a table at the same time. Right? The law of identity, the law of non-contradiction. And so, because the Romans took more of the Plato rather than the Aristotle, they collapsed into Christianity. They made Christianity what it is, and then we fell into the Dark Ages. And for a millennia, we were miserable. We're dying. The art was dark. Everything was about death and the afterlife. We regressed technologically and so on and so forth. And then Thomas Aquinas, in the 1200s, brings back Aristotle through the Egyptians and says, hey, this guy is really interesting. Maybe we should learn some Aristotle. And without knowing, he sparks the Renaissance, then turn into the Enlightenment, and then people start thinking, wait, I can really know reality? And then there's the scientific revolution of Newton that creates science. And then we have the political revolution of America. A lot of it happened here, actually. And then there's America born, and then Industrial Revolution of America that gave us all of the knowledge of how to produce things and the freedom to trade. And in the same year that America is born, Immanuel Kant publishes Critique of Pure Reason, bringing back Plato on steroids. And this is what we're living today. Everything you're seeing right now is an impact of 250 years of Kant bringing back Plato big time. And the Aristotelian side of the world is declining. And we're going to continue to decline. So I'm not bringing good news. I can just give you the formula of how you fight this. So I want to go even deeper, because the question that one needs to ask themselves if they care about what's going on in the world is freedom for what? So we fight for freedom. What's the point? Any ideas? Why do we need freedom? Who said we won't live better under communism, where everybody's working towards the same goal? History proves that, but you can argue about that. People can manipulate data however they want. Yes. Any idea why we need freedom?
The fact that someone else controls your life might have achieving what you want. That might.
Well, why is that bad? I mean, if let's say someone smarter than you will tell you exactly how to live your life, what's wrong with that?
What if they're not? What if they're not smart?
Let's say they are. They take an intelligence test and they're 3 times smarter than you.
If I agree with them, then I might follow them, but I still should have say.
You agree with them on what?
Whatever they're intelligent about.
Let's say they tell you, I think you should be a mathematician. I'm smarter than you. You took a occupational test, and I think you should be a mathematician.
If I agree with the way they're presenting, I truly agree with that, I would.
What if you don't like math?
Then I wouldn't do it. That's why I don't like.
But he tells you need to be a mathematician. It's not a question. Yeah.
And choice.
Choice.
Freedom to choose whether or not.
Why is that important?
So it's going to whole life.
Getting there, right? I mean, there's something about the human condition that requires me to be free to act and to speak and to think. Let me offer you a deal. I'm going to give you 3 gourmet meals a day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Every day. I'm going to feed you. But the condition is I'm going to put you in a cell for the rest of your life. You take that deal?
No.
Why?
But I probably like nice food.
Right? So what does it say about needs as a human being? So we can go as deep as you want. I don't want to go too deep, but it's clear that there's something about the human condition that requires to live as a human means that we need to live in a specific way. And I'll talk about it. We can live by force, and we have lived by force most of human history. Or we can live by freedom. And you know, you can silence people. People can threaten you. Not just punch you in the face, but they can threaten you and they can limit you, right? What if I told you, if you're going to hold his hand, I'm going to choke him? I'm not doing anything to you. Will that affect the way you behave? Yes, right? So I can not, even by words, but explicit threat for action, I'm still violating something in you, right? I can lie to you. I can sell you something that says, this is pure gold. You're going to give me $1,000 for it. And you go home and it's like, wow, it's not gold. What did I do in that case, by the way? What did I violate? I'm trying to cover all the things by which I can violate freedom. What does lying do?
Going against reality?
Yeah, but why is that bad for you if I lie to you? Let's say I'm your girlfriend and I cheated on you and I never tell you and we have a relationship. Why is it? And if you don't know about this,
It would be unfair because we have some agreement and you're breaking that and I don't.
Right. Any other ideas? Yeah.
Consent, romantic consent.
Yeah, we had some kind of a consent, and you broke that agreement again. So you detached me from what's really going on in reality. You told me this is gold, or you told me you're faithful to me, and you are detaching me and my consciousness and my understanding of reality from reality. So here's the thing to think about. The purpose of this thing here, right, is to understand reality as it is. Right? Because if you didn't understand reality as it is, you would be bumping into walls and making all kinds of mistakes. If anyone is jeopardizing your ability to deal with reality as it is, including lying to you and cheating you or threatening you, they are diminishing your ability to live as a human. Okay. Now, I always give this. I'll talk in this squirrel. They can lie to you in different places. What they actually do is they break the law of cause and effect. If you think about what justice is, if you explain it to a 4-year-old, just say, you get what you deserve is justice. You get what you deserve. And what you mean by that is that there is a causal relationship of things that happen in life. And if you do this, you should expect that. It's like, if I drop this, what will happen? It will fall down. Now, what will you guys do if I just drop this and it starts hovering in the air? What will you do? Freak out. Because something that you've never seen, assuming you're not a magician here, right? The same is the law of, like, I made that, I bought this coffee and I paid for it, just snatching it out of my hand and going and drinking it. What did you do? You brought the law of cause and effect. It's mine. I earned it. It's mine. And now with brute force, you came and took it from my hand. So it's breaking the law of cause and effect is actually what's going on. So let's imagine a perfect world. A world where everything is amazing. So, let me move forward a little bit because it's going to take me too much time to get into that. The reason why I think understanding philosophy is harder than understanding quantum mechanics, or as they say, I don't know, what's hard for you? For me, it was quantum mechanics and thermodynamics, but rocket science. Everybody say it's not as hard as rocket science. Rocket science is easy, very easy. Because if you learn what happens there, you will learn the concepts, the equations, you'll understand rocket science. But philosophy requires a level of introspection that I just showed you. I mean, I gave you some simple examples of why not lie that I'm not sure you thought about before. And that's a very basic thing. Because we don't have the introspective skills to stop for a second. Nobody teaches us those skills to say, forget about math for a second. We're looking at reality and seeing what's happening in science and everything. Everything that is matter, we understand really well. But our consciousness, really hard. So we really need to be introspective for a second. So what I'm asking you to do is to be introspective for a second. Let's talk about what's going on in our mind. So I'm really going back to the question, what is happiness? How does it feel? So let's start with a definition, then I'll give you some advice so you'll feel like you're getting something out of this other than just questions, how to pursue it effectively, assuming that you understand what it is. So for me, if I want to describe happiness, it culminates in a sentence that I tell myself, I know how to live as me. And that requires me to know myself, and nobody will ever live as you, ever. So it's like scratch. I can tell you about the principle that guides a human's happiness. What are the principles? Those are the ethical principles that we've derived. But on top of that, you have to bring your own content, because I don't know what you love. I don't know what gets you excited, what you get attracted to. That is something you have to define for yourself. But the question, are you curious enough to pay attention to what you are responding to and leading your life towards that? And I know what I want is another big question. It's like, okay, I know myself. Now, how do I translate that to something concrete that I'm going to pursue? My career, my romantic relationships, my wealth, my property, my house that I want for myself. Do I want kids? What else? What are those things that I want in life that are going to enrich my life as a human being? And I know how to get it. So a lot of people know how to dream really well, but they sit in their couch and they imagine a life is going to be amazing, but they never know how to act. So it's a combination of thought and action. Those are the two components that are required towards a fulfilled human life. And so the outcome of all of it is really, I know how to live. Those are the components. And another thing I wish for you is that when you're very old, just about to die, you will feel like you lived a life of no regrets. For me, that's a really good standard. So whenever you're confronted with a really tough decision, should I move? Should I change my job? Should I get out of a relationship, get into a relationship? A really good way to think about should I do it or not is to put yourself like 20 years in the future and look back and ask yourself, let's say I want to quit my job and start a new company. Okay, there's a lot of risk involved, right? You should ask yourself, what would I regret more or less, right? Doing it and, let's say, potentially failing, or not doing it at all. And usually if you talk to older people, what you find is most of their regrets are not doing things, rather than doing things and failing. Okay, let's say you want to marry someone, and she wants you to marry her, and you say, okay, what will I regret more? Marrying her and divorcing after 10 years, or never marrying her. Okay, or taking that job and turns out it's not for me, or not doing it at all, right? Taking that trip and risking some of my wealth, or not taking that trip. And that's a really good way, because at the end of the day, it's life and happiness is an optimization game. It's not a game, but you're trying to squeeze as much meaning out of life. And there are many opportunities in the free world that are open to you. It's like a buffet of opportunities. And like, what would I try first? Or what would I, because you have limited time. So that's what I wish for you, no regrets. And I always talk about happiness as a prolonged state of consciousness. It's not like today I'm happy, tomorrow I'm miserable. I'm a happy person because my life is going in a trajectory. Yeah, there's ups and downs in that graph, right? But it's going in the right direction. So it's more of a climate, not a weather. Now let's talk about definitions from very smart people. So just to motivate you, here's something Aristotle said: happiness is the meaning and purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. He tells you whenever you wake up in the morning, there's only one thing that should be on your mind: my happiness. What it means. Now, it's not an easy concept. You have to break it down and unpack it. But he's telling you that's the only thing that you should be interested in. And Rand's definition goes a bit deeper. It's still very high level, but she gives us many insights into what that requires. Happiness is a state of consciousness. It's a state of consciousness. It's not a moment of consciousness, which proceeds from the achievement of one's values. So she's basically giving us a formula. She says, first, define your values. So we'll talk about what values are. Then you go out and you achieve them, or try to achieve them. Nothing's guaranteed. And the outcome of that process, you cannot grab happiness out of reality. Because like, oh, I feel I want to be happy today. You know, I'll meditate a little bit and I'll make myself happy today. Or think positive thoughts and you'll be happy. Try it. It's going to work over time. If you just got fired from a job that you really liked, it doesn't matter how happy you want to become, you won't be happy. So you have to try to achieve them, and the outcome of that will be a state of consciousness we call happiness. So it's actually a product of a process. It's not something you can will yourself to. You have to do those two things, which is define your values and achieve them, and then the outcome will be happiness. So think about people, I will put some of my heroes. Happiness is a result of an achievement. You know, the fact that Steve Jobs achieved things, I think made him a very fulfilled person, very happy person. He wouldn't change his life any other life. Roger Federer, my hero in tennis, it's about what he loved. He will tell you, I just love the game. I'm okay to wake up every day an hour earlier, rain or shine. I'm going to practice this because I love this. From the age of 6, I wanted to do this. So you can't compete with someone who has so much passion for something. So the question is, what is your passion? Why do we hear people say, don't follow your passion, right? Don't follow your passion. Do what works. Do what makes money. And it's really a state. This is Senna, Formula One, my hero. It's really about a state of consciousness. I mean, you see that those people don't really care about what you think about them. It's about them. It's about what they chose to do, and it's about how they define what's great for them. And they got to be, great, but you don't have to be number one in the world to live an amazing life. It's not about fame. And by the way, I know a lot of people with a lot of money in the bank, with a lot of zeros, and it doesn't guarantee anything. I think I said that the other day, where I came back from a conference with about 250 rich and famous people. Everybody there had a private jet. And the main theme of the conference was addiction and depression. Doesn't guarantee. If you don't know what happiness is, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how much commercial success you have. It'll just, in the end of the day, you'll end up an alcoholic or depressed or exhausted or suicidal. Because you don't know what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing. So let's talk about this thing called value. Because she says, choose your values rationally and then pursue them. The strategic question is, what is the value? So her definition, which is very abstract, is anything that you want to gain or keep. It starts with a basic value, which is your life. Everything is dependent on your ability to sustain your life. I mean, don't stop breathing first, right? Please, and eat and sleep, because that is the standard of value. And all of the other values are judged according to one standard. Do they promote and enrich your life, or do they diminish and risk your life? Okay? That's how you know if something's good. Think about it really well, because that is a deep thing to really realize. Everything that enriches and promotes my life and prolongs my life is good. rationally. And of course, you can go into the questions like, should I steal because I will be richer? But if you think about the word rationally, what does it mean in a span of a human life to steal the money rather than make the money, and so on and so forth? So I created this thing that really helps people understand this full cycle of what happiness is and what does it mean to them. It has 4 stages of self-observation, because a lot of people think they love things just to find out that a lot of the things they love is not what they chose. Somebody chose it for them, or they were taught to love something, to appreciate something, or to appreciate safety over passion, because that's what my mom told me to do. Then, so we take a lot of introspection exercises here to extract a lot of things that I know about myself for sure, because I'm proving to myself those are the things I get attracted to, period. And then we analyze them, prioritize them in the right buckets. And because again, we have to choose our values because of time, right, and energy. And then we commit to the things that we know for sure will improve our lives. Call it the spotlight value, because our ability to focus is limited on specific things. And those things that are going to send shock waves of happiness throughout our lives is what's most important, and then we need to go out and do it. And while we're doing it, pursuing it, we need to develop some monitoring skills to say, how is it going? Am I doing well? Am I getting stuck? What kind of help do I need? Am I actually improving my life and going towards happiness? So it's almost like a cycle. And it's actually asking, a better way to think about this is asking the questions, who am I? Right? And the answer to that question that I show is that I don't know you, right? I can know your name and where you live and all your demographics and all of that, but it's still not knowing something, right? What does it mean to know someone? You can't open their head and look inside and say, oh, there you are, right? The only way to know someone is to know their values. If I told you that I love abstract ideas, I love public speaking, I love race cars, I love playing my drums and my bass, I love smart people, being around smart people, I love being around people, but I also love my quiet time. I love reading, I love integrating, I love putting things out. Writing is very hard for me, but I want to put out a book about happiness and things like that. You will suddenly know me, not what my name is. You'll forget how many kids I have and how old I am and where I live. That's not knowing someone. So, and you knowing yourself is the same thing. You know yourself through your values. You are an awareness, a consciousness. And the only way to see that consciousness is to see it react things in reality. When you talk about your girlfriend, like, describe her to me. Right? So, oh, she loves this, she does that, she prefers this. Right? So it's all about values. So who I am is really asking the question, what do I love? And then from the things I love, moving into what do I want out of the things I love, because not all of the things you love you're going to pursue, right? And then you decide, what do I want now? And that makes it more concrete and actionable. And then you make a plan. How do I get it? And then you need to figure out what's stopping you. Talk a little bit about what's stopping most of us, which is not understanding the feelings, emotions. We don't know how to use emotion. We don't know what it is. We don't know how to use it. And we end up making wrong decisions. And while I'm pursuing and climbing my mountain, right, which requires effort, this is the process of achievement, I need to ask myself, how is it going? And eventually, if I get to the top of the mountain, this is why I told you about the rich and famous being depressed at the end of the day, is do you know how to enjoy it? What's the point of wanting a marriage and wanting a great career where you can express myself and so on? What's the point? Because you can be a cynic if you achieve amazing things and can brush it aside and say, it was great, but not too much. So it invalidates everything that you've done here. And I see a lot of people doing amazing things and not giving themselves credit and the self-esteem that they deserve. So, interesting so far? Yeah? You have any questions? Go to the next level. Any disagreements? Questions about
I have a disagreement.
Yes, let's go for it.
I feel like, because the thing, my issue with Rand is like, you spoke about the Aristotelian there, but it feels like she sets up a framework for Aristotelianism and then basically just nosedives into emotivism. So you use the example there of Aristotle talking about virtues, but Aristotle believed in virtues in the context of the telos, which was something that was objectively outside of you, that dictated whether you were living a virtuous or unvirtuous life.
Well, what do you think was his standard?
His standard?
Yeah, for what constitutes a virtue. I mean, what's a virtuous life? I mean, so what Rand adds to Aristotle is she defines a standard, which I think was missing. Now, I'm not an Aristotelian expert, so I can't argue with you about everything Aristotle, but I know Rand, and I know that what she did to Aristotle is a little bit of what Einstein did to Newton, which is to take the basic concepts and then make them clearer and more precise. What she did is she said, look, I can give you the standard. There's no, there are no truths in reality that dictate, right? The Ten Commandments that we need to now somehow derive out of reality. She said it's a result of the studying of the nature of man and the way that organism operates. Because I can write philosophy for squirrels, right? If you look at a squirrel in the forest, you see that it has a nature of thriving. If he'll try to act like a snake, he will die very quickly. So we accept that animals are born with some kind of a nature and a mode of action that sustains their lives towards a state of prospering, thriving, flourishing. If you take that and you try to apply it to humans, it's way more complicated because our conceptual capacity, our means of survival, is through the power of concepts. And she shows how the same principle applies and then creates a standard by which you can start defining the virtues. So Aristotle was right about some of the virtues, not all of them, because he didn't have a standard. I don't remember all of his virtues, but some of them was like, why? Where did you bring that from? Now, Ayn Rand connects each and every virtue in her ethics to the nature of man and the ultimate virtue, which is rationality. Right? Applying your mind in a specific way to identify reality in a non-contradictory way. So maybe I'll let you finish your question.
Yeah, no, but then what I don't understand is okay, let's accept that. But then what would stop someone from? So you talk about these kind of like Marxists and far right people smashing stuff on the streets. Yeah. What if I were to say the virtues that I want to keep hold of and that I've discerned from reality, that I need to fight this particular oppressive violence, this particular oppressive system and use violence to do it. I know that if I don't do that, I'm going to regret it on my deathbed. What's the thing? So, for example, I'm a Christian, so I can just say that there's God's, let's call it God's reality. There's God, and how I discern or feel about things does not approve or contradict God's reality. I can interpret it in different ways, perhaps, but the standard is always set. It's just whether I fall short of it or whether I achieve it.
What is the standard?
Well, I mean, we can get the whole discussion about what it means to be a Christian, obviously, but
no, I know what it means to be a Christian.
Yeah, the standard would be what Jesus said to you in his teaching.
Right. So let me ask you. Let's pause here.
Yeah.
Okay? I have two ways to decide to deal with reality and knowledge. Either you say, I'm born to this world, and somebody needs to tell me what to do. Or I'm born to this world, and nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm going to listen. I'm going to discern for myself. I'm going to decide for myself what makes sense and what doesn't. Okay? And then whatever I decide is true, I'm going to live by. Now, pay attention that before the content of what you decide to do, okay? Because I agree with you that a lot of Christians are way better off than people that try to figure out ethics by themselves and get lost and hit a wall, right? There's a decision you've made to either go by faith or dogma or whatever someone said, or by reason, which is independent. Okay, so what Rand promotes is that forget about which religion. You were, randomly born in here and not in India, and the same Indian kid could say, what are you talking about? Hinduism is the way, or Buddhism is the way, or I was born Jewish. Judaism, your God is false. In Judaism we say, you guys are crazy to think that man could be a god. If you show a cross in Israel, it's like, it's crazy. Jesus was Jewish, right? There's only one God, and you guys are following. So, who says what's true? Is it randomness that you say, no, I was just lucky to be born? Now, we can go on and on about discussing it. The question at the bottom of it is, how do you decide to know? It's epistemological. My attitude is that I will drop any fundamental premise of my philosophy if you prove me wrong once. Not many times, once. I can prove you wrong 1,000 times, but you won't care. You won't care if you say, I don't accept reason as a means of knowledge. I go by dogma and by faith. Fine for you. Go ahead, build a whole epistemology. Actually, you don't have to build it, it's built for you. It's very convenient. And live your life according to those rules. Now, do I think that Christianity is a better ethical system than Islam? Yes. But do I think it's good? No, I think it's bad. Okay, it's like a very primitive level of philosophy or physics that got us to a specific, actually, what people did with Christianity was awful in some eras so I think what the founding fathers did and brought the good virtues of Christianity into some political environment, and they were really not that religious. They were as secular that could have been in that era, and they improved. Now I would say, yeah, why be stuck there? We accept that technology always moves forward. Why? Why not philosophy? So I think Rand offers us much more advanced, more correct, more precise philosophy than Christianity. The fact that somebody did something 2,000 years ago, okay, good for him. We can move on. So I'm challenging you because at the core of your being is a decision that you've accepted, which is to go by faith and not by, which Rand says is the fundamental ethical virtue that you should think for yourself, and to make sure that if one time, because in math it works like that, you can do your whole math test. If you made one mistake and you came to the wrong answer, you'll get an X, failed. We accept that in the material world, in the quantifiable world, the world of quantities. We don't accept it in the world of consciousness. So we could go on talking about it, but that's my answer to this. You have to make an epistemological decision about how to view the world. I was born Jewish, and I had issues with it because I don't know what it is about me, but when I was asked to put the yarmulke, the kippah, my first question is why? And then my grandmother said, because God is watching you from above, and you have to respect him. There's a reason for it. I said, great. Where is he? How does he look like? Can he show himself? And so on and so forth. And for some reason, I don't know why, maybe it's the way I was brought up to think by someone else, is I said, I don't accept the fact that if my grandmother says God exists and he's Jewish, right, I should accept that. So I gave back the yarmulke. At 9 years old, I was sent to the opposite extreme. I was put in a kibbutz, which is a communist village in Israel. They were trying to make communism work. It didn't work in Russia. They'll bring it to Israel and make it work. I was a number, by the way. I had number 318. It was on all my clothes. And we all the kids, I had the same exact thing. We were living in a kid's house. We were separated from our families. It was out of a novel. Ever read Anthem? And then they said that's the way to live. And their epistemological level was completely different. And their ethical level was completely different. They said, we're anti-religious. I don't know if you know what Yom Kippur is. It's the holiest day of the year for Jewish. They fast. Nobody's allowed to drive. Nobody's allowed to put on the light. It's like a full day of introspection. And they would go out. They would do campfires with pork on that day, just to stick it in their eyes, right? And they were anti-religious, but they replaced God with something else. They told me the God is equality, is whatever we think together. So when I wanted to play the drums, I had to go and beg a committee to buy drums, right? And so you were always under the authority of some kind of a committee. It was not clear who makes the decision. The fact that the head of our factory that made all the money for the kibbutz and the laundry person making the same exact money made that guy leave and start another company in the city, and then the factory collapsed. Just read Atlas. You've read Atlas. So you see, it's not like the atheism is guaranteeing you happiness and wisdom. No, not at all. It's only one thing, which is reason. And I am willing to change, honestly, change my whole value system if somebody proves to me that anything in my building of ideas is corrupt. Now I want to tell you one more thing, because it's a small audience, I go deeper. The reason why it's almost impossible for you to even conceive you rooting something like Christianity out of your life is that all of your life has a lot of weight. Everything you're doing every day has a lot of weight. And you're building your life. And epistemology is like at the bottom. It's the process by which you decided to build the building. And now I'm challenging it. And the psychological strain goes into standing in the top of a building and saying, you're asking me to now change the foundations of the skyscrapers? It's impossible. So when I was 40, I read Atlas Shrugged for the first time. I realized that I've built like 40 years of a life. And some of my deepest premises about life were completely wrong. So now what do you do then? What do you do then? How do you drive your car and change the engine while you're driving? And I can tell you, I call it, the first year was what I call the violent year. It was a year of shifting what I knew was true and retraining my mind, my subconscious mind, which is responsible for integrating everything, and saying what I think is wrong. So I need to change my emotional reactions to that. Okay, if I think something is true and somebody is threatening what I think is true, I feel anger, or I want to protect it, and so on. But it's wrong. So what do? Ayn Rand convinced me that rational selfishness is the moral code. I thought the opposite. I thought that doing good things for other people is the good. Now she's reversing the ethical compass by saying, no, it all comes from you. So it took me time. I always talk about it as like retraining your 4-year-old. Because when you were 4-year-old, you were told to do what to do, and you started to integrate some kind of an ethical foundation that was integrated in your subconscious, and your emotions are a result of those value judgments. Now I'm telling you that 4-year-old is wrong. What do? You have to bring him up again, you have to talk to him, and you have to prove to them, to that 4-year-old, that what they're thinking and the moral judgment that they're doing to everything that you're evaluating is wrong, and you change it. And what's amazing about it is that your emotional responses to the same thing reverse. I thought that socialism was good. Now I think it's bad. I thought that doing things for others altruistically was a great thing to do, to sacrifice for other people, to give them my time, my wealth, is amazing. Now I think it's stupid. Okay. And my emotional responses completely change. It's possible to do it. It's hard to do it. So I hope, I'm not pushing too hard here, but that's what's going on because I have experienced it myself.
I mean, if I could, do people mind? But I know, of course.
Yeah. Do you mind, guys, if we go in that direction?
My issue is that like I wasn't born a Christian. I was a Marxist throughout most of my like young to early 20s.
Yeah. Which I appreciate, by the way, because it means that you care about morality.
Yeah, and I converted to Christianity. And my issue with the argument you just made is that I feel like you've made the post-Enlightenment dichotomy of faith being completely opposed to reason and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I would argue that actually the Enlightenment understanding of rationality wouldn't have been possible without Christianity, particularly the Reformation. I think that the Enlightenment philosophers borrow a lot from the Reformation principles of being able to interpret revelation scripture as an autonomous individual and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So my main issue really with your sort of counter argument is that I don't see faith and reason as being completely opposed to each other. You can choose to have faith, whatever that might mean, through a reasonable position or through rational discussion.
What I can't not reconcile, I think don't go together. They're actually opposites. Think about it. It's just a method. At the end of the day, it's a method. What is the scientific method? You say, I believe nothing, and I start with observation. I won't take any hypothesis. I start with a blank slate, and I observe. Okay, and then after observing enough instances, I do something very tricky. And by the way, one of the gaps is that nobody really validated induction as a means of knowledge, but I induct, right? Do you know the black swan problem, of induction? So let's say I only see white swans. That's all I see. And somebody asked me, could there be a gray or a black swan anywhere in the world? And I said, let me think about it. So I haven't seen any black swans. I would say no, it can't exist. But here's the thing. When I look at dogs and I look at cats and I look at pigs and I look at everything else, they have one color. Is the essential characteristic of a species, of an animal, is its color? No. So is a swan an animal? So I can induce that there's very likely a non-white swan somewhere because it's not essential. I can induce it from other things, although I've never seen it. And lo and behold, there are black swans, right? So it's the human ability to induce knowledge, even if I haven't seen it yet, because I'm understanding the essential characteristics of the phenomena of what's going on. So through induction, I create more knowledge, and what I do is all my knowledge needs to be fully integrated. It's like a puzzle where all the pieces have to fit. And what Rand gave me is a new way of seeing the world where all the puzzle is completely rationalized. I would argue that your puzzle is not less sophisticated than mine, but it has some pieces that cannot fit. And you're trying to brute force them into the puzzle by saying, no, it has to be true. No, there's no evidence for that. And what you call evidence in other areas in your life is just not working at that level. You're trying to, again, find all kinds. Think about Jordan Peterson. He confuses the heck out of it. He's trying to argue things from 7 different directions to the point that I give up. This guy is smarter than me. He understands something I don't understand. I'll accept his truth as the truth. And that's what a lot of, political leaders do. They just confuse the heck out of you and they give you all kinds of arguments. Before you know it, it's like, I'm done. I give up. I don't give up. I want to understand everything about everything, and I want to make sure that everything that I know is true. And I think what Rand gives us is that ability. So let me just go forward a little bit. I want to talk to you about several techniques that will allow you to get out of here and be a happier person. Interested in that? Just techniques. Going down from philosophy to something way more concrete. What I would ask you to do are several things that would make you much happier if you follow that process. The first thing, in order to identify your values, go and write every day all the good things in your life. All the good things in your life that you know are good for you. They create value for you. It's the places, the people, the environments, the activities, everything that creates meaning in your life. It doesn't matter if you loved it as a kid and you stopped doing it. You're still interested in something. You know, somebody told me I loved Lego. Then the question is like, what will be an equivalent of building Lego today if I gave you all of the time and money, if you could choose and say, yeah, we'll build knives. Somebody told me I would love to create new types of knives. They love knives. Okay, go build knives, right? So identifying those things and putting them in what I call a value galaxy, where you're in the middle and you're putting everything. Now, I recommend taking a white wall in your house or something, putting a lot of sticky notes. So the raw materials will come from this exercise called One Good Thing every day. You make lists and lists of all the things. And what I would ask you to do is to write, here's the good thing, here's what it means to me. Another question you can ask yourself in that daily introspection is, what does it say about me? I'm the kind of person who likes to build things. I'm the kind of person who loves people around me, and so on and so forth. What do I value? What is the kind of art that I love? And so being very curious about what are those values, and then putting them on a wall and trying to organize them. And identifying what I call value themes. Remember the question that I asked, who are you? Or who am I? The best way you can do it in a minute is to describe what your value themes are. Because that shows me that you took all the things that create meaning in your life and you've abstracted them to value themes. For instance, I don't just say I love tennis and I love racing and Formula One and things like that. I say I love highly competitive mental individual sports. Give me one of those, I'd love it. It's actually so abstract that I can manufacture new values in my life because I know exactly what is the aspect that I love about this. I mean, my daughter's she can say I love cooking. I know she doesn't love cooking. She likes baking. Why does she love baking, not cooking? Because baking is very precise. She loves precision. So if she abstracts, I like the kitchen. She doesn't. She likes baking. So things like that are very precise. And then you take all those things and you put them in 4 categories. And the reason why I created those 4 categories is because your values fight for your attention and your time. You have to decide what not to do, what not to pursue. That's the hardest thing. If you want to achieve things, the first thing you learn is that you have to have focus. So I created 4 domains of values because those domains are the same type of time and energy that is required. So if you take all the things in your value galaxy that I just showed you and you put, what is my highest priority in my creative pursuits? What do I want to do as a career, right? And a lot of people say, yeah, but my job is not what I love, but it pays the bills. I would say, yeah, put it in wealth. So your job that pays the bills right now, but it's not creating a lot of meaning from a creative perspective, is a top value in wealth creation, but it's not a career. So what are the most important things in your career? Relationships. There are 4 types: romantic relationship, family, friendships, and professional relationships. Where do you need more? Either better romantic relationship or friends. Then health and rejuvenation, everything that has to do with sustaining your body and your mental well-being and your relaxation and vacation, everything that goes into that. What are you going to do? So you see, it's not the same energy. This is something you can do on the weekends. Take a hike, go to the gym in the morning, or take an annual vacation and fly to Thailand for 3 weeks, right? And then this is a very unique domain of values because this domain of values that people are mistakenly thinking this is the goal. No, this is just an enablement, buying the time and energy to then allow you to pursue the values in these together domains. But it's very important because without creating the wealth, you will not have the time to maybe change your career and learn something new, to invest the time in your relationships or buying things or going on a vacation. So I don't see the dichotomy, and I work with a lot of people who are really imprisoned by the fact that they make the money not in the realm of what they love, which is completely fine, by the way. If you are smart enough, I won't call it lucky, if you are smart enough as a young person to direct your life where the things you love doing actually creates the wealth, good for you. You'll be much more fulfilled. But I'm okay with a 50-year-old that says, look, I'm a lawyer. I decided to be a lawyer when I was 20. I'm a very successful lawyer, but I hate the law. What do you want to do? I want to paint. Truly, it's not just a hobby. I want to paint all day long. I want to have exhibitions and a gallery and want to sell my paintings. It's great, great. Let's create a plan and put it as your top value here so you become the best painter you can be, right? And that's how I work with people to then invest their time in an optimal way. Let me ask you a question just to show you how your subconscious mind knows very instinctively what values are you're missing or not. Let's say that I have a magic wand in my hand, and I can upgrade your life dramatically in one of 4 domains. I can improve your career. I can give you now a pathway to a career that you just would love doing. Okay, just imagine what you would like to do as a career. I can give you that. Let me go to relationships. I can give you an amazing lover. I can give you amazing friends. Improve your family, maybe, or professional relationships. I can give you health and the ability to rejuvenate. Or I can improve your financial situation just so you can maybe pursue one of those. And by the way, it's okay. Let me eliminate that for a second. Because this is a complicated answer, but a lot of people know this, and I have to prove to them that it's not really this. It's this because of that. It's this because of this. Right? So let me eliminate one. So let me ask you, and I'll give you 15 seconds to think. I have a magic wand. Which domain would you like to upgrade in? What's missing in your life right now? And it's right now, by the way. It's not in a year. It might change. What's your name?
Elena.
Elena. So what's your answer?
Probably will go towards health.
Health. Okay. Career. Relationships. Health. Health. Yeah. Career.
You eliminated mine.
Okay. But wealth towards what? What would you do? Just like create yourself a better job?
No.
What would you do with the money? Go on a vacation or?
Maybe get a bigger apartment,
Okay, so maybe health and rejuvenation. That's something.
Yeah.
But more well-being. Okay. Yours again? Career. That's interesting. You see, so your subconscious mind knows where you should be improving your life. Now, what exactly it is that you need to improve and how, that's the hard question. Okay? So, and then we go into how to achieve things. So let's say that I work with you and then you said, okay, there's something about your health that needs to be, I don't know if it's mental or physical or whatever. Let's specify it. Let's see what's going on. Who can help? How can we help? What do you need? Do you need money? Do you need more time? And then we make a plan. And you say, look, Tal, this is the most important thing in my life. If I'm going to do that well, I will be able to now maybe pursue bigger and better goals. We make a plan and we make it your spotlight value. Your life is about this right now. And you wake up every day and say, let me remind myself that my top value right now is improving my health or improving my relationship. Okay, what type of relationship and what are you going to do to make it better? And by the way, I will ask you immediately, what would success look like? Can you describe a day in a life, your future, I don't know if it's months from now or a year from now, where you say, I've solved my health issue. It's completely gone. Or I have this job. I'm doing this, right? So this is where my managerial, if you will, or business career experience comes in, and I know how to get things done. So I will tell you, focus and build a plan. And if you download my workbook, you can do it for free. It's myhappiness.team, myhappiness.team. You can see you can download the full workbook with all kinds of exercises. to plan how to get the things you want. Or first, so things like what is the most important thing for me to pursue and convince themselves this is why. And another thing that people don't do enough is they plan their obstacles, because pursuits are hard and you will run into inner and outer obstacles. What is your solution strategy just to improve your chances of and I give you a lot of examples. The last thing I want to talk about is feelings. This is one of the least understood things, and I think again Rand is giving us breakthroughs of knowledge. Let me read to you a couple of quotes, right? This is from the Objectivist Ethics. She says, just as the pleasure-pain mechanism of man's body is an automatic indicator of his body's welfare or injury, a barometer of its basic alternative, life or death. Okay? If I pinch you really hard, what would your body do? Why? Why does it say to you, no? What standard is it applying? So where is it leading you if I pinch you really hard for a long time or I choke you? Pain towards death. Your subconscious mind this is the kind of animal part of us, right? Our whole nervous system is pre-designed to sustain what? The ultimate value for life. So if we take that, now see what the other part of the sentence says. So the emotional mechanism of man's consciousness is geared to perform the same function. A barometer that registers the same alternative by means of two basic emotions, joy or suffering. So, if I said, what would I say? I would say to you, okay, quit your job, let's build a business together. Okay? What kind of feeling will you have? Now, we don't know the answer, right? But here's what's going to happen. Your subconscious mind is going to evaluate that situation either as something that is going to be good for you or bad for you. Life, or more death. And you will feel one of two emotions. Of course, and by the way, at the end of that workbook, there's a dictionary of emotions and human needs that I urge you to look at, because it will make it way more subtle. But is it going to be joy or suffering? Anxiousness or excitement in that case? And a lot of people are taking that as a primary. It's like, oh, I feel anxious about it. It must be wrong. No, Tal, thank you for the offer. I'm going to keep my job. Right? The thing about it is that if you think about the fact that even your physical responses is something you can control. Did you go to the dentist lately? You go to a dentist? No, not lately. But did you go ever? Right? Was it fun? You were excited about it? Yeah, let me drill in my mouth. You decided to go anyway because you logically know that you need to override your pain towards a goal. I go to the gym. It's not fun. It hurts. But I do it because I know the outcome is good. So, but the thing about the emotional world is that can be wrong. The standard can be wrong. And this is why we need to really validate if our emotional reactions are aligned with what's good for us. And she gives another great quote. She says, emotions are the automatic results of man's value judgment, integrated by his subconscious. You don't know even sometimes why you feel what you feel. And if you don't know, you're like, I'm going to lead by emotion. Emotions are estimates of that which furthers man's values or threatens them, that which is for him or against him. Lightning calculators giving him the sum of his profit and loss. So think about any value in your life, people that are dear to you, things you own, your skills, things you value. If I'm going to threaten it, automatically the emotional reaction is going to be no. either anger or frustration or so on and so forth. I had to do a lot of work to clean up my system, make sure that my values are clear to me, they're rational, right, that they're for me. If you're an altruist, your value judgment is like in the reverse. Everything that's going to hurt you is going to feel great. Everything that actually promotes your life, more profit, more flourishing, is going to be, God forbid, pride. So you feel guilt, right? So if the moral code that is running behind the scenes is not for life, think about what it will mean physically. It will mean that I'm going to put my hand on a stove. It's going to feel great. That's what we're doing with wrong value judgments. That's how people end up with depression and misery and guilt and many other things. So this is the process. Let's say somebody tells you something, immediately you feel something back, some kind of a value judgment, and you feel bad about it, right? And then, so somebody says something to you, you apply the value judgment, feelings, that this is the only thing you feel. You don't hear your subconscious mind saying, this person is trying to blame me for something I didn't do, this is bad for my life, I'm a truthful person, I feel angry. No, you just feel angry, right? So there's two wrong ways of dealing with emotions and one good way. One is leading by emotion, just saying he's stupid. Let's say one of you guys said your presentation today was average. It was not great. And I was like, oh, come on, screw that. Okay, so I'm leading by emotion. I don't care about what's going on behind the scenes. Whatever I experience is my input. I'm going to act by it. That's emotionalism. The other thing is to repress it. To say, Elena told me that my presentation was average. I feel ashamed. I'm not going to feel ashamed. I'm going to ignore feeling ashamed. That's repression. That is like tampering with evidence of trying to understand what's going on in the back of my mind. There's something that makes me feel ashamed that maybe I was not prepared well enough. But I'm going to ignore it. Or let's say that I hate doing what I'm doing, but I'm going to repress it because it's my duty to care for my family and put bread on the table. I'm going to ignore the fact that I can't get myself out of bed on a Monday morning. I'm going to ignore it. We're very good at doing that, repressing. So that is a bad strategy. The good strategy is to take both and say, wait a second. Somebody told me my presentation was not good enough. My initial reaction was like dismissal. And why? Because I think I was prepared. Is it true that I gave an average? Well, actually, if they told me it was average, it means that I didn't deliver. So maybe there's truth in that. Maybe I'll ask other people. Did you think if everybody tells me it was average, it's like, okay, so I'm fooling myself. I thought it was great. It was average. What can I do to improve it? What's going on? Right? Is it true that I was average or not true? Maybe I just talked to the only person who didn't like it and all the rest like, it was brilliant, the best. So maybe I shouldn't feel ashamed, right? So I don't take that as a primary. I go back to the value judgment and I ask for, and I validate the value judgment, and then I go back and validate the emotion. And suddenly it's like a detective, right? Trying to understand what really happened, seeking for truth, and then guiding my life according to the value judgments and the emotions. And by the way, the magical thing that happens is that if I realize that my value judgment is wrong, my emotions change. Okay? Because if you came to me, I'm sorry, I'm playing, and you said your presentation was not that good, and I think everybody thought it, and I go home feeling ashamed, it's unjust. Because maybe all of you thought it was brilliant. So it's really being curious and smart, really smart about how to deal with emotions. And it requires a lot of introspection. In the guidebook, the workbook, there's this brilliant tool that is called the 7-question introspection guide that will allow you to take everything that happened to you and unpack it. So I give an example where I was hugging my daughter. She was leaving back to Israel. She decided after high school to go to Israel. where I come from originally. And I hugged her and I felt pretty bad. Driving home and I feel frustrated. So I asked myself, what is happening? That's what's happening. And then what do I feel? It's name the emotion. I felt frustrated and helpless. Okay? And it bothered me. So I did that. And then I said to myself, why do I feel it? What is the cause of the feeling? Or what is the need at stake? What am I not getting? So I wrote, I still don't accept her decision to join the Israeli army. I think it's a mistake. I want her to be happy, and I don't think she's taking the path that is right for her. That is why I feel helpless and angry. Okay? Good enough? Now we're going to get deep. What is the thought or value judgment behind that feeling? What is the premise that leads me to think that she, or makes me feel angry and helpless or frustrated about that? So if I'm really honest, I'm saying that I know what's good for Shiri. I know what's good for her. I know what's good for her, not her. That is why I feel frustrated and helpless, because she needs to listen to me. That is the standard. My advice is the right for her. I want to direct her and have impact on her journey. I don't like it when she doesn't listen to me. That is the value judgment that is creating the emotion. You following me? Right? Now here's the hard part. Is it true? Is it objective? And I had to think about it, but then my answer was no. I don't know what's right for her. I think I know her, but she knows herself so much better than I do. I'm 50, she's 19. I can project my life and values and experience on her. She needs to pave her own path. I can't make her happy, only she can. I need to do the opposite, encourage her to make her own decisions and be supportive. I should voice my opinion only if she asks for it. So my value judgment is wrong. My feeling of helplessness and frustration are misguided. This is what a bad parent would do. I don't want to be a bad parent. So the next question is, what should I do next? I text her and I say I love her, that I'm supportive, and so on and so forth. And the last question is like, what did I learn about this? Because there's something bigger to learn. I made a mistake. It's a big mistake. I could have destroyed my relationship with my daughter. Right? So respect the sovereignty of other people over their own lives, especially the people that... And then I was like, what am I doing with my wife that is like this? Right? So this is the smart guide of dealing with emotions. Not a lot of people do this. You're not taught as a teenager to deal with emotions like that. They teach you to, what do you feel? I want to know what you feel. That's what's important. They stop here. That's it. Almost like this is a primary. Whatever you feel is truth. So no, uncover. There's so much more to learn. And lastly, I will talk about what's the point. You really want to be happy. What I would say about that, before I ask you to go pursue your values, is to know that the cashing in on waking up every day and getting dressed and brushing your teeth and figuring out what you want to do, learning in a university and doing all the things and finding someone you really love and building a home together. All of that is for what? And the answer is self-esteem. Knowing that you are proud in the way you live your life as you, that you know that what you're doing is guided by your nature, your interests, your goals, and everything around you is actually you project yourself on to your world. I mean, your friends are important to you because they're your friends. My kids are important to me because they're my kids. My neighbor's kids are not as important as my kids. And the standard by which I value things is me. How meaningful is it to me? I don't know if you watch Formula One. I really love Formula One. I wanted I love it. For you, it was like, oh, it's so cars running in circles. Who cares about that, right? So knowing yourself, appreciating what you love, and then celebrating the knowledge that you are the type of person that knows how to define their values, go pursue them, try it. Even if you fail, it doesn't matter, you try again. This is why Rand's genius is that she's not only a philosopher, she's a novelist that is trying to show you what happiness looks like in the real world with the power of heroes. The person who kicked my butt the most was Howard Roark of The Fountainhead. Just if you didn't read The Fountainhead, I really urge you to read it. Because now I can ask myself, what is my version of this guy? Guy who won't compromise on his values, knows exactly what he wants, and will live and die by his values in such uncompromising way. I want to be like him. And if you think about, that's basically what characterizes Steve Jobs. I know what I want, I'm going to get it, no matter what other people tell me. And I'm going to be ruthless about getting my vision out to them. If you heard the stories about Steve Jobs, he was not a nice guy. And another thing that he was value-oriented, the same as Roark. I mean, the most famous scene, I will ruin some of it. I mean, so somebody's trying to destroy him, his values, right? And this antagonist is meeting him. And this antagonist asks him, so what do you think about me, right? I'm the guy who's trying to destroy you. He looks at him and he says, but I don't. That blew my mind. I mean, the ability to see the world through values, not what's evil about the world. Evil is impotent. Ignore it. If it's not in your way, right? Why is it important? Ignore it. I'll give you a personal example. It's like part of my core family was not good. So I dealt with it and I got me depressed and guilty and so on and so forth. And one day I was like, what if I fired them? I just fired them. I didn't choose to be part of that family, right? So I fired them, moved them out of my life. It was the hardest decision ever. I immediately wept like a baby because my subconscious mind was mourning ripple effects of what it will mean to never call them again, and what my other family relationships. Best decision, eventually, because I don't have to deal with it anymore. Liberating. It's really hard. But that is what it means to be value-oriented. It's my life that matters. It's my life. There's no God that tells me, love your father and mother. What if my mother and father are not good people? Pack your things at 18 and go. Okay, so this is the heroic way of wanting something for your life. So I know it's not an easy one. It's emotional. But I hope you go and pursue. And the best thing you can do is read Ayn Rand fiction first to really get to see if you're inspired by what she has to offer you. And if you're really interested in the kind of the physics of those ideas, you go and read the nonfiction she did later in her career. And I think we're talking about a hero, a philosophical hero, who will be appreciated maybe decades and centuries to come, because it took Aristotle about 2,000 years to really have an impact on the world. I think reality is on her side. As scientist, actually, truth fits. So I know it was not an easy discussion, but I wish you all the best with a heroic life. I'll do that. So thank you. Any questions?
As a question which kept on coming up throughout your presentation, what is of value to me and what is my objectives brings, and my happiness would bring unhappiness to other people. Like, for example, we know, like, even take present context. I'm from Russia, so
Yes.
I understand a little better.
Yeah.
I don't think that Putin really wants, and he wakes up every morning saying, "Oh, I'm going to kill as many Ukrainians." He wants good for his people.
Right.
He wants good. The way he sees good, because of this decision, and because he managed to achieve his objective, obviously building a state where he has this illusion of people agreeing with that.
Yes.
It's actually hundreds of thousands.
So do you think that Putin is a value-oriented person?
Oh yes, I absolutely believe it, and I think that his understanding of value.
Do you think Putin is a happy person?
Not sure. I don't know him well enough. But he definitely is on a mission, and he thinks
he's on a mission. Hitler was on a mission.
It's fair, and essentially is what he wants is good for Russia, for the country.
So let's unpack this.
Yeah.
First, truth is about, again, a non-contradictory identification of reality. So if you say, if his values and what he wants to pursue kills other people, then there's a contradiction. Because if you take it to the extreme, let's say I want to annihilate all people in the world. That's my goal. That's what I decided is good for me. So unless I kill all the people in the world, I'm not going to be happy. Could that be a rational value? A life-sustaining, promoting value? Because remember, the end goal is to live as a human being, according to what human beings need, right? And the answer, I know it's going to be a long process for you to, I think, to uncover it yourself, but here's the way. The contradiction is that he decided to pursue a life diminishing, threatening, horrible. It's not even a value, it's just an anti-value. So he's pursuing an anti-value, right? Now he's doing everything he can to create destruction and to create misery and to create devastation. And that's what's going to get. That's his goal. He doesn't see that. He calls it the good. I mean, Hitler was trying to do good for the Aryan race. But it's going against the laws of physics or the laws of philosophy. Because it's like saying, look, I'm going to ignore gravity. I'm going to jump off the wall and I'm going to try to fly because I think it's great. I want to have that experience. Well, try. You know what's going to happen? See what happened to Hitler. Right? If you're going to violate the philosophical principles of human thriving, you're going to suffer. How do you explain that a superpower like Russia cannot crush, Ukraine in like minutes? Because they're violating some philosophical principles that weaken them. This is why one of the most optimistic things I've ever heard is from Rand. She says, evil is futile. Evil is trying to fight reality. That's why it's evil. The nature of evil is that it's wrong. Right? It's wrong about something. So if you try to do something wrong for a long time, what will happen? You will fail. Right? So Hitler and Putin and all the Genghis Khan and all the awful people who are trying to violate philosophical principles, they will get what they deserve, which is misery and poverty and death, because they're fighting towards death. Now, if you think about America, which is a country that promoted human freedom, which is a prerequisite for human flourishing. This is why she didn't take my offer to go to jail, right? She knows inherently that eating is not enough. So we tell you, do whatever you want, just don't hurt other people, which is actually the implication of reason in a political sphere. The only way for us to thrive is to define that we have inalienable human rights, which actually mean what you cannot do to me, which is don't hit me, don't lie to me, don't cheat me, but leave me alone. You don't have to feed me, you don't have to give me a school, you don't have to care for me. It's a world of independent people. Take care of their lives. And everybody migrated to the new world without any safety nets. I don't know if you know, people rewrite history. America in the 19th century had no public welfare, no public schools, no public roads, no public anything. And we grew from huts to skyscrapers in like 70 years. See what happened in Hong Kong. Just give people freedom and individual rights and let them go, right? And so if you agree or not, that is 100% true in promoting human flourishing. This is why people, without even knowing, are fighting to go to that world that promises them nothing and everything. And they end up being happier. They intrinsically know that what is required to live qua man is freedom. So if America gives you that, it'll be powerful. It's almost inevitable. Inevitable. I come from, let me be really controversial. Israel is going to be more successful than, give it 22 nations of Arab countries. Why? Because it's a country of freedom and individual rights. And it's going to be more powerful and better in creating technologies that are going to supersede and be superior to whatever the people who are basically barbarians would like to do because they are fighting against reality, right? So Israel will have startups and will be very wealthy. I could tell you, in like 1948, if I really understand philosophy, that this thing is going to, kind of Western civilization culture is going to grow and thrive, and those guys are living by the very primitive philosophy of destruction. Will hit a wall over and over and over, and they do all the time. This is why I don't think Israel is making a lot of mistakes, but eventually it's not about who's good, who's bad. It's like who's right and who's wrong. I go below politics. There's one part that is for life and one part that is against life. It's physics, but in the philosophical realm, which is much harder than physics. So my view is almost like, if you really understand those principles, there's no contradiction. No contradiction. Russia is bad in violating another country's sovereignty. Is Ukraine good? No. But there's principles you don't violate, right? And so on and so forth. So is America good now? No, it's deteriorating every day. Its policies are awful, right? The more socialistic it becomes, the more welfare, the worse people will be. Because there's no allocation, there's less wealth creation. It's an if then that kind of proposition. So I don't know what it is again about my need to understand truth, but I will not sleep unless I figure out what leads to what, which is like a physicist, but in the realm of philosophy that then leads to ethics, leads to politics, and even aesthetics. I can tell you that there is a way, which sounds ridiculous, to define what objective art is, what good art is, and what bad art is. Okay? Now, people don't understand that because they don't understand the relationship of art to driving. But if you go to a modern museum and you see a toilet in the middle of the room, that's disastrous. That's going to kill the spirit of the teenager who sees that toilet. Versus
unless it's an art object.
What?
Unless it's an art object.
What do you mean by art object?
Well, it can be an art object. So
it's not. It's the anti-art. Right?
no.
It depends on what your standard is. But if you see that the role of art is to promote human life by showing it what life could be. If you look at David, Michelangelo's David, and the inspiration is like, I want to be like him. That leads me to thriving versus I'm a piece of you know what. Then your life is going to go in that direction. If this is your vision to your life, you're going to suffer. So I think what Rand gives us on top of Aristotle is a set of principles that allows us to really understand the human condition. From there derive truths. And I know it's radical to say truths, even objective truths about what is true for life, what's against life. Yeah, and I'm that certain. By the way, another controversial word. Very certain about my truthfulness because I haven't heard a better explanation that is non-contradictory. This is what, now people ask me, do you think Rand was right about anything? Everything? Not sure. I don't think Einstein is right about everything, right? There's always ways to improve philosophy, the same as improve technology. I don't take her dogmatically. I don't take her as on faith. I take her on.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I might just be slow. I'm a bit confused about the two. You opened the presentation, you were talking about sort of reference the current political of sort of opposing forces.
Opposing?
Sort of opposing sort of forces, and it's all quite horrible. I'm not sure what the link is between that and then you start talking about sort of personal happiness, how the two feed into each other.
You mean between freedom and happiness?
No, I understand the link there,
Yeah.
but I think more so when you mentioned the presentation opened sort of you have like pictures of that happening,
Right.
sort of objective.
And we're trying to understand why it's happening.
I guess so, but I guess I'm not really understanding the link between when we start talking about personal happiness, how that feeds back into what we sort of talked about Yeah, I'm not really sure about the link between
Okay,
that.
so
And
maybe
then,
I didn't. Let me stress a little
I
bit
just
more.
got the second thing that.
Let me take the first
Yeah.
one and then you. I think we're losing the battle for freedom because the goal is unclear to us. Freedom for what? I asked that question. Freedom for what? And I think as long as we don't understand what happiness, human happiness is, what are the preconditions for happiness, we don't understand why we need freedom. I am completely, I completely understand a Marxist that says human thriving looks like that. Then he describes to you a utopian world where everybody has the same clothes, the same house, the same, of course, look different, behave different, but we're all equal. And they have this, if you think about heaven, and what's the name of that Netflix that is very about morality?
The Good Place?
The Good Place. Your heaven looks like a place where everybody doesn't have to work. Everything is great and even, all good people. If that's your heaven, then you will create a political system that works that way. This is why you can't blame them. Of course I can, but you can't convince them that capitalism is a good system because it's going to be hell, not heaven for them. So the link that I make is that first you have to have an explanation of what is the heaven that you're aiming for and why this is true heaven, right? And only then argue for a political system that creates that heaven. If heaven is a world where you don't have to work, you have to be a Marxist. But it violates the human condition of I have to create, produce my wealth myself, otherwise I don't have self-esteem. This is why Russians have cynicism, not self-esteem. Because nobody teaches them that, no, you have to go out, work, find a job yourself in a free market, define yourself, and then feel self-esteem. No, in my kibbutz, I was told what to do. I couldn't choose what to do, right? So it goes against human nature. So if you don't argue at that level, then politics is a derivative. So I think we're losing, and we will continue to lose, because the ideal is the opposite of what's possible. It's really a fantasy. It will never exist. We'll try to create another version of socialism, another version of communism, just be permutations or different aspects of how humans can suffer. And that's the real reason why capitalism and the mission of individual capitalism basically says you're on your own. You're on your own. Go live on your own. That's what humans need. If not, if they don't do it this way, they're cheating themselves. Now you can ask, well, what about parents? And what about relatives? And so on. You're on your own means you create your own life, including give birth to children and care for them, and you have a moral obligation. Care for your kids because it's a one-side contract. Don't have the same contract with mother and father, by the way. You want to help a beggar on the street because you have the money to do that, because you don't want to live in a society that really not fault of their own are suffering. Give them money. It's great, but for you, it's a selfish view of the world where everybody's trying to make their lives the best it can be rationally. And what comes out is more production, is more wealth, is more benevolence. I don't know if you know, but American society in the 19th century was the most benevolent philanthropic society that ever existed. They had so much money that they had to pick and choose who's going to give money to orphanages. The orphanages were like, we don't need more money. People were lining up to give them money because who doesn't want to, help a poor child, right? So there's a lot to say about that, but the connection really at the core is the heaven you have in your mind realistic, rational heaven, or something you made up? Done? So thank you again, and you're welcome, by the way, to tell me at tal@ayn.org, ask me more questions, what you should read next. I wish you the best. I wish you happiness. Thank you.